Live from the Man Cave in South Parkersburg, West Virginia. This is Roberts Report. Let's talk about it. And now, the host of Roberts Report, Craig Roberts. Watch it all fall down around you now. Was it ever really worth it? Having your kingdom crumble to the ground? Because you never had the courage to stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up.
Welcome, everybody, to podcast number 2, Roberts Report. Today, we've got, of course,
My fault.
welcome, everybody, to podcast number 2, Roberts Report. Today, we've got, of course,
I see what the deal is. Sorry. We'll get it. I promise.
all
I
right,
didn't realize it was echo.
we really love our Shallow Side boys. We had to play them again, man. First of all, I do want to thank Shallow Side for allowing us to use their song Stand Up. They've been here many times in the Mid-Ohio Valley, but Stand Up is the official theme for Roberts Report. Today we are with, of course, Scott Martin here, my co-host.
Hi.
We have a couple special guests here. If you all joined us during the BS session, we have, of course, DJ KOS.
How's it going?
And we have DJ MIXAR here from the Mid-Ohio Valley as well.
How's it going?
And now we are finally able to get into the meat and potatoes of our broadcast.
I was signaling the mic. I can hear his phone.
Yeah, you had to turn the volume. Okay, it's officially muted now.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's talk KOS.
Where shall we start?
Let's get more into depth from what I want to know about is the you've lived. I mean, you've literally lived the mixing business now since.
I mean, yeah. Well, if we're going
90s, 80s.
yeah. Well, it all started. If we're going all the way back, it started for me way back in about 82 and 83, and this is whenever the breakdancing thing came along.
Breakdancing, yeah.
Yeah, and
I would
Did
break
that?
something
You did
dancing.
head spin. That's why you're
you're bald. That's
Head
exactly what it
spins.
is. And
What's my excuse?
Hey, I didn't. I must have done head spins too.
I got used to, like we were talking about earlier, I'm one of these people who I don't like having what everybody else had. So I had this breakdancing group, and every time we would go and do something, I got tired of playing the same K-Tel tapes and everything else that we had because, we do live in the Mid-Ohio Valley, and especially at that time frame, we had no exposure to the big city underground hip-hop that was going on. So, where it really started for me is I had just met one of my really close friends. His name is Ed Cross, and he was in our breakdancing group. We had actually met through this video game, Joust. And
Which, mind you, just to cut in here just for a second, KOS here is probably I could almost guarantee you is the master of Joust at this table right here, right now.
I got that record up. Well, I had the record at the Escape Hatch before it closed of
It's really
21
depressing.
million. Yeah, I played from opening till close, and we had to kill it. I had like 20, I think it was 21 million and something, and I ran off 186 guys into the lava. And then with Stephen Scully's new place up there, I went ahead and decided to go ahead and put a score down on that of 6 million. And for me and Ed, we're both of us masters of that game. It's a matter of how long do you want to stand there, and now it's not so easy to stand there for hours upon hours.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut in there, but
that's okay.
I definitely
Yeah.
had to point that out because
Oh,
I spent probably 3 hours one day just trying to.
I have
It's
to
a
figure
hard
out
game.
what this game is. I'm Googling it right now. I don't even know what this is.
My game was Arch
In case
Rivals.
you're not familiar with Joust, this was one of those early games. If we go back, since we'll kind of detour here, so we'll go back, to the early '80s and the arcade sensation, which is something that I have as much as musically that I have a passion for. Stephen Scully started this arcade to bring back that the stuff that we loved back then. And, for people like our young one over here that never got to experience that era can go back and see what it was like to be in that. But back to this Joust game, this company Williams was making all of these cutting edge video games, because before that we had just seen real basic stuff like, I don't want to call it basic, but like Pac-Man and all this. And I remember going in the arcade and seeing this game Joust, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? There's this person's flying an ostrich around and they're jousting, and I became fascinated by it and started playing it and got really good at it. And there used to be the Big Red Rec Room, and I don't know if you guys are going to remember this, but it was across from PHS. I'm trying to remember what's in that building now. But it was right across from there, and they had a Joust game. They had one at Video Mania, and they had one
I remember that one.
And they had one in the mall. Mm-hmm. Well, I kept going all the time, and let's try that again. I kept trying to get the high score, and there was another score that kept showing up, and it kept saying CEC. Well, I didn't know that at the time, but it was Eddie, who was this other person who was doing the same thing that I was doing. And to make a long story short, one night I stayed, and I think he might even be tuned in now. I stayed with one of my friends at that time frame, John Marks. And he was like, you should stay with me. We can play. He had Atari, so we played Asteroids. But the big thing was, it said, we'll go to Video Mania. I mean, I can still remember. It was a Friday night. His mom took us and dropped us off. I still remember. And for those of you who don't remember, the Video Mania is right where the gas station is at now, on that corner, right down from the Wood County, the library right there.
Right.
It was a little tiny place. And I just remember it. I walked through the door, and to the left is where Joust was. And when I walked through, the place was really dark, and there's all these people gathered around this game. And I looked, and I see that it's Joust, and I'm like, oh my God. I walk over, and I didn't know it, but this person, Ed, is on this game, and he's got this most ridiculous score past where I've always been trying to get, and I just freaked out, and I kind of made my way around everybody. And we actually met that night, and that's how we became friends. And we were friends through that game, and then breakdancing came along, and we started breakdancing, and Ed was a big gymnast, so he picked up on a lot of stuff a lot faster than any of us did.
I think I recall a video of you doing some of your breakdancing at the PHS.
That would have been at the Sports Carnival, and very fortunate to have that footage. I actually have the VHS tape that I got from Tim Stone King from TNC Sound and Lighting, who recorded that back in '85. And I keep meaning, there's been some of my classmates that have been asking me about this because they want to. I need to get it transferred to DVD, but I have the whole entire 1985 Sports Carnival on there. But I pulled, which you can see on YouTube if you put in DJ KOS Breakdance, and it brings up this footage from 1985 that you're talking about. And I stayed all night with Ed one night, and we're sitting around watching, and I remember looking in the TV guide, and it said Night Flight street music, and I told Ed, I said, we need to stay, let's watch this. So we stayed up, and I still remember the first video comes on, and it's Buffalo Cows by Malcolm McMahon. Some people, only the old school guys are going to get that. And it's got the Rocksteady crew, and they're breakdancing, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, this is awesome. And then on one of the segments, they were talking about this movie Wild Style, which is an underground breakdancing graffiti movie. And there's a scene in that movie that they played, and it's of Grandmaster Flash, and he's actually in his bedroom, and he's doing this thing, and he's scratching. And I remember seeing that, and it completely changed everything for me. I remember saying, oh my God, so that's how it's done, and that's what they're doing. And that's when I started using my dad's turntable, which I got in huge trouble for. And I started buying 12-inch records, and I started using the tape deck, and I started splicing things together. I mean, I would basically just take all these records, and I'd take all the best parts, because I didn't have the money, I was still in high school, would be buying turntables and a mixer and everything. So I did that for a long time, and then there was a place that opened up in Marietta, which is right beside Wendy's, and there's a car lot there now, but there's this little tiny place, and all those people who will remember this place from back then, and it was called Beat Street. And it was this little place that we went to, and where we could go, and everybody could break dance and do all that. And that's the first place that I actually started DJing at, that they had 2 turntables and a mixer, and I was trying to figure it out, what was going on. And And then I met this gentleman by the name of Aaron Williams, which was from Belpre, and he actually had 2 turntables and a mixer in his basement. And we started going over to his house, and we started figuring stuff out. And it was about late 86, 87 that I actually got a hold of 2 Technics turntables for myself. Everywhere that I had DJ'd at that time frame, whether it was Players and all these other places, the Technics 1200s was already there. And for back then, to buy a set of those for yourself, you know, I mean, it was pretty expensive. So when I finally got my own turntables at my house, that's whenever everything really started to take off, and I really started to really practice. And it's funny because, you know, at that time frame, I really thought that I was kind of behind the curve, and I didn't realize till later that I was actually doing pretty good, being, you know, here in small town in West Virginia. So that kind of, you know, I went from that, and I made probably around in the early 90s, I was doing some of the Metro mixes for 95, and I was getting records sent to me from the record companies, and in particular, I was a big fan of the stuff from the South, and this gentleman by the name of Derek Raming was sending me up stuff from Hip Rock Records down there at that time frame, and I called him, and I said, hey, I've got this mix show coming up, do you got anything new? And he said, no, but I'm getting ready to work on my nephew's album. He said, I'm going to need somebody to scratch on it. And I said, oh my God, I said, I could do that. I mean, if you need somebody to put cuts. And I knew in the back of his mind, he was thinking, yeah, white guy, West Virginia, scratching. Yeah, okay, there's no way. And when I got off the phone with him, I knew that that's probably what he had to be thinking. And I started making a cassette, and I was like, you know what, I can send this cassette, but he'll never believe that this is me tearing it up. So I recorded this video, which if you go on YouTube, you can see, I think if you put in DJ KOS DMC, I think it brings it up. It's got a ton of views. And I recorded this video, and it's just of me scratching everything from raw bass and all this stuff. And I still remember, there's certain things that I can just remember like they're yesterday. I sent it priority mail on a Friday. He calls me on Monday morning, the phone rings, you know, it's back before cell phones. And I was waiting, I was literally waiting by the phone when it rang. And the phone rings, and I pick it up, and said, is Mike there? And I said, this is Mike. And his exact words were, oh my God, I totally underestimated you. This thing, okay, how much do you need, and when can you get down here? So we basically, he flew me down. I left the day before Andrew hit, and we hit it off so well that he offered me a job at the record company and said, hey, you know, do you want to move down here? And I was like, well, of course, you know, because I hate winter, and I wanted out of here at that time frame. So went to Florida, was there, and worked for the record company, helped with production, did some cuts on some songs, moved back in 97, and was here until about 2004-ish. Went out to Chicago, hated it, moved back here, and then in 2007, my agent at the time got me booked in Reno, Nevada at this club called Club Bliss, and I went out there on Cinco de Mayo and hit it real well with the club owner and said, hey, I'd like for you to come out and manage this place, and offered me a job, offered to pay for everything. And
now, KOS, if I remember, I just kind of give an error with technology. If I remember right, around the time, excuse me, that you went to Florida in 91, was that
92?
92.
I left the day after I left is when you guys got hammered with that huge snowstorm.
Right, and that's about the same era that they first started coming out with CD scratchers.
You couldn't scratch, but you could pause it, and it would go like and you could move it around.
Yeah.
The first thing you could actually scratch on was of course the Pioneer CDJs. I mean, that was it. When those came, and those actually came, I can tell you exactly when those came. Xavier and I was on this tour. We was a gentleman who I did 4 turntables with, and I mean, we were all over the place in 2001 through about 2003. We played up in Detroit at the Detroit Electronic Music Festival, and at the tent, somebody, I can't remember if it was Pioneer or somebody, had this Pioneer CDJ. It was first generation 1000s. And everybody's coming over, and they're like, oh my God, KOS, you got to come here and check this out. You're like, you could scratch on CD. And I'm like, nope. it's not happening. I've already played with these things. They're all still, they've got that digital delay to them, and they're like, no, Pioneer's figured out. You got to come here and you got to see this. So I go in, and they've got 2 of them set up, and they've actually, excuse me, they have them set up with this battle mixer. I'm like, okay. I said, well, do you have anything that I could use where I could really test these things out? So I can't remember what they put in, but they put something in, and I started moving the platter, and I noticed immediately, I'm like, whoa, okay. So I started playing around with it, and I was totally blown away. And I said that day, I said, these eventually will be the death of vinyl for the DJs, especially in the electronic world. And I said, with as tight as they are, and they were even still not as tight as what they are now, later on, they developed the CDJ 800s, which is where I came into it, because they were a little more basic and they were more scratch friendly. And that's where everything started to shift. And then I started traveling with them because they weren't out there. Everybody was still using vinyl at the time, and everybody starts crying at that time frame. They were like, oh, it's cheating, I'm like, look, I scratch. The only difference is I'm not putting a turntable on, I'm actually putting a CD in. And they said, well, it's just not the same. And I said, it's not, but I said, what's great about these things is we don't ever have to worry about that backfeed that comes up through vinyl. I mean, we all know that still vinyl is still the best sounding thing there is whenever it's done right with the right needle, the right record and everything. But when you're in a huge environment like Ultra and any of this stuff, when you're dealing with vinyl, there's always this, how do we get rid of the vibrations? Do we hang the turntables for the ceiling? I dealt with that. That's a nightmare for someone like myself if you're going to be scratching and doing anything, because this stuff is swinging all over the place. So then they figured, well, we'll stack them up. And I can't even tell you how many shows I did where they would stack them up on top of cinder blocks, which was a good way to neutralize it. But still, when you come to that long breakdown, in an electronic song, it would get down to be completely silent, and if it would start rumbling, and it would hit that needle, and it would come up through the system, and it would backfeed. So, little by little, as I was traveling with the CDJs, and we were doing this, and people were really starting to pick up on it, I noticed that probably around 2002, 2003, that's when everything started taking off, and then they come out with the next version, the MK2s of the CDJ 1000s. And then in 2000, I think it was 2004, Kurt and I went to the DJ Times Expo in Atlantic City. If you've never been to that and you want to see the latest and the greatest, all that stuff, that's definitely the best one to go to on the East Coast. And I'd heard about this thing that they were coming with. It was called a DVJ, and you could put a DVD in it, and they're like, you can scratch video in real time. And I thought, oh my, there's no way. How in the hell are they doing this? So we go, and at that time frame, Second Nature and Rooney G were two of the top guys for Pioneer at that time frame, and they did a demonstration with these things, and I was just like, here we go. This is another game changer. The problem with that situation was, at that time frame, those were about $2,000 each, if I remember right. When the DVJs first come out, they were about $2,000 each, and then you had to have the mixer and this thing. By the time you got done with it, you had this $6,000 setup that you needed, and then on top of that, you had to burn DVDs. So every time you wanted something, you had to burn a DVD, and of course, you had to put it in, and then it had to load up. So if you wanted to get away from that, what Second Nature and Rooney G figured out was, I'll burn everything that I'm going to do, that I know that I want to do, all on one DVD, so that I know that I'm not ejecting it all the time. Well, in the meantime, around that time frame is whenever I think that the Serato, I can't remember whenever Serato actually, I think it was early 2000 that it came out. They developed a plug-in. I think Virtual DJ actually got to the video thing before them, but I was holding out until Serato came out with the video plug-in. Whenever Serato got the video plug-in, it's about 2000 and I think it was around about 2000 and somewhere between 2005 and I think 7. I had just got to Nevada, and that was September 2007 is whenever I picked it up and started doing it. And then that's whenever I started getting into the video production, and then I met a whole bunch of wonderful video DJs, which I still know to this day, that kind of helped me out and showed me some things to do, and we all knew that if you wanted to go to that next level as a video DJ, you need to be producing your own stuff, because then you personalize your show, kind of like with production, audio production. If you're producing your own stuff, you're playing your own stuff live. So and that's where I picked it up, and I did that. And then something that you was talking about earlier and that you shared on the page, I'm a big horror freak. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a complete nut when it comes to that. And I noticed that whenever I was doing Halloween, that people never seemed to get enough of it. I know myself, October's not long enough. And I started making all of these crazy, scary videos. And I went down to, in 2012, Nick Groff, who was currently at that time frame was on Ghost Adventures, was going to do a show. He was doing music and hired me in to do video and to perform with him and his band at Scarefest down in Kentucky. I went down. I knew that there was a lot of us nutcases that loved horror and loved all this stuff, but not till when I did that, did I realize, like, there's thousands of people, I can't remember what the count was, that are coming around, and I'm seeing all these people who have the same passion. And it was kind of right before that when I really started realizing, I said, you know what, I'm going to kind of just go off here, because there's nobody who has kind of cornered the market when it come to the horror videos, and nobody who had the real passion that I did. So I created like my own horror show, which that I think you came down to.
Yep, a couple years ago at the Mothman Festival.
At the Mothman Festival, yeah. Which, you know, I've talked to Jeff about doing that again, but I know that there's not very much room for them to fit me in down there, I think is what Jeff was saying. But yeah, I come in and I did that, and I think that that's a perfect setting for what I do, because
that was a very cool show, by the way.
And so many people missed out on that. Kurt did a wonderful job of the whole Men in Black thing, and the way that, you know, that whole the weather kind of screwed us that night, didn't it? If I remember right, I know that there was some people that were going to come down. I know some friends of my wife were going to come down, and they was like, I don't know if we really want to drive through that. And I think the weather kind of hurt that night, you know. But that if I had to do one of my best shows as far as video, that one really went down because of the theming at the beginning.
Kurt come in with his flashlight, looking under the stage.
Oh, it was great. And I don't think you got video. I know the only video I have from that is what you recorded.
Yeah.
And I turned it into part of the promo.
Yeah.
And did that. But, you know, I'm still doing that. The problem with it is it fits in certain environments. Mm-hmm. And describing and making people understand what it is and making people understand the value in it, that's where the problem is. It's really tough. And I'm signed with this new entertainment company, Level Up, which was formed by Joey Fatone from NSYNC and Joanna, who was part of another company before that. And they have actors, and they've got Joey Fatone, they've got some of the guys from New Kids on the Block, they've got AJ from Backstreet. And that's what we're working on now, is try to how do we sell this show to people? Because when people see it, they love it, you know. And I knew that when you came to the show, you already knew what was going to be happening.
Oh yeah, I'd already tuned into your chat things and different things that you
which
had.
I was doing. And to try to make people understand what I was doing at the time frame, I set my room up out in Reno, and I was doing these once a month broadcasts through.
Well, we actually tried to book a couple things at the Adelphia before you even come back to the area. Back,
and it was being run. Different people were running it, and
just couldn't come to terms
money.
with it.
It just come down to money, and I understand that. You know, they have to figure out. Okay, we have to make this worth it. You know, does it make sense to put all this, and what do we get out of it? But yeah.
But with the rewind, I mean, that was you kind of go back on, not to cut in here, but your rewind program that you and DJ Kurt Plummer have going on now has been.
It's been really successful, and that started. Kurt and I started talking about that as soon as I knew that I was going to move back here to Parkersburg, because I know, being in and out of here, through a lot of my life, I know that there's nothing to do here. And I was watching online, and we had already talked about this place, the Adelphia, and I'm like, gosh, this would be a perfect place if we were going to do this. But I had to get through the door, so we talked about this earlier. I kind of piggybacked with Hit Parade, which is one of the most amazing bands here in town, and they let me play in between their sets, which got me through the door. And then we booked our first Rewind show. And we've kind of just went from there, and we just had our 90s Rewind Saturday before last. And
for those of you that don't know what the Rewind program is, I mean, he can explain it to you a little bit better, but just give you an idea. they go through the whole theme, and I mean when we say the theme, they have the whole theme of, whenever you had the 80s thing, you had the whole Rubik's Cube, you had the Pac-Man theme on the stage.
Which is where Alec comes in.
Yeah.
With his company, and they make a lot of our custom. For the 90s, I came up with an idea to have Beavis and Butthead standing up there, and I pretty much, him being brilliant at this and understanding totally what the vision is, I can always call him and say, hey, I want this, we want this on the stage, and I said, do you think you can do that? He's like, yeah, just give me a little bit of time. So what do you think of this? Yep, that works.
So now you've been hitting, been hitting all the eras, the popular.
Right. Well, the 90s, of course, that's been the huge one. This last one was
so many good
huge
songs during that era.
It was. I still favor the 80s, but I know a lot of people, the 90s, still. And I think it's because it's the closest, especially to the younger ones. They seem to relate to that one more. But the 80s is really big too. But we've cycled through all of them. We did the 80s, and then we did the 70s, and then the 90s, and then the 80s, and then we did Rewind Remix, and then we did New Year's, and we did 90s again. And then now, the one that we've always wanted to do, Kurt and I, we've wanted to do this one since the beginning, but we both thought that we needed to establish this thing before we went into it. The next one's going to be Yo Rewind. And that's going to go back to what got us started in this whole thing, which is that early hip-hop, and we're putting a time frame on it. From 79 to 93, we're cutting it off at where the gangster stuff started, because I feel like that's when we headed downhill, and all of it just wasn't the same.
Don't get that going.
Yeah, we won't get into that. I mean, and look, and I know, like I said, NWA was brilliant. That album was brilliant, and there's a lot of music that came after that was great, but I feel like there was a turning point there, and for us, we're going to focus on the 79 to the 93. A lot of if you guys have seen Get Down on the Get Down that's on Netflix, they touched on that a little bit, and they're going on the early Grandmaster Flash stuff. But for Kurt and I, it's really all about that early era, about what we were breakdancing to, and we'll be doing R&B and some funk, but a lot of that early, old school hip-hop. And that's the next one that's coming up, and that's coming up June 10th. I know we've been sharing some of the flyers, but the main flyer on that should be coming soon. And then since we're talking about it, I can go and tell everybody, we've already got them all lined up. I've already talked to the gentleman at Adelphia, and they love us doing Rewind there. So we've already lined our Rewinds up into next year. So the next one is going to be Yo Rewind, and that's June 10th. The one after that, which I think is going to be very, very good for where it sets, is going to be 70s Rewind. And this was actually Nate's idea at the Adelphia, that he said, why don't we put this on September 9th, which is the Saturday of the Sternwheel Festival.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The crowd that will be down there, I think that this
Very
is going
diverse
to work.
crowd there.
It'll be the
perfect.
70s hits that perfect. So that will be the 70s. And then December the 11th, we're doing the 80s. And then we're going to do Rewind Remix again on that Saturday, December the 30th. And then, of course, we'll be back into the new year, and then that's when we'll start with the 90s. And we try to space them out to make them out about every quarter, about every 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Yeah, we'll give Alex some time here, but one more question or thing that a little while back you went to some kind of a show down in the Huntington area, and you got to drive Joey Fatone back to...
That's Kentucky.
Kentucky? Okay.
Okay.
Kind of hit on that a little bit, because everybody that is in the NSYNC era wants to know, are they ever going to get back and do a reunion show?
And that's so funny that you asked that, because you know that somehow came up on that 2-hour ride to the airport. So what he's talking about is, it was that agency before they split off and did another agency. They had Joey and AJ and Chris from NSYNC, had all these guys signed, and they booked me to do the VIP after party, and they had me set up right beside them at the booth in the corner so that I could play music and get people's attention to come down that direction. So basically what happened was...
and you had a video of, was it Chris doing karaoke out?
Oh, I have a video. What I can do is I record on my phone, and then I can actually dump it into my Mac, and then I can pull it up in Serato, and I can actually scratch it live.
Yeah.
And I got Chris and Joey saying something about me so that I could scratch it, because I knew that I didn't think that they really knew that you could do that. So I had them say that, and then while they were over there signing their autographs and taking their pictures, I hurried up and I dumped it in there and pulled it up, and they was just like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy that you can do that, because you can personalize the show.
Right.
So we did that, and then I did their VIP after party, and then we worked out a deal. Instead of somebody that that they didn't really know, they said, well, I talked to people at the agency, and I told them, I said, I could take Joey back to the airport because I basically have to almost go that way home if you're okay with that. So it worked out, and I ended up having to take Joey back to the airport that day. And
That's too cool.
And he's a great guy. He's a great person. And I asked him I said, is there any chance that you guys are ever going to do this? Because I said, if you were going to do it, now would be the time to do it. Mm-hmm. I said, I feel like, with the 90s being hot, and what's old is now new, and age-wise, I think this would be the time to do it. And I remember him saying that he didn't think so because of what had happened. If you remember, whenever Justin, I can't remember which awards it was, whenever he performed, and they popped up out of the stage and they did their thing. Well, he told me that something to the sort that they had discussed that, and that Justin wasn't really interested. Now, I've heard there's been a change of heart. I've been seeing this kind of shared around that supposedly they're going to get back together and do another tour. I can't confirm that. I haven't heard anything. I've just seen it being shared that maybe they're talking about it now.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Mayweather-McGregor fight, I think, at this point.
Please make that happen.
I just wish they'd get that over with.
We are going to talk about that.
They need to get that over with.
Let's
I know,
talk to
Craig,
Alec
you're not
first.
a fan of McGregor, are you?
Let's talk to Alec first.
But you want to see that happen.
I would like to see that fight happen. Yeah, let's shift things over here to DJ MIXAR, Alec Ortiz here. What's been going on with you in the town? I've seen a lot of flyers going across my feed. And
Hey, explain something to me first. Crossover DJ still exists? Is one a company and one a DJ name, or what? Explain that whole thing.
Well, I kind of wanted to. I kind of want to branch off from like doing weddings and things like that. I mean, I don't mind doing the weddings in schools and things like that, but I really, it was like what we were talking about in the BS session. Scratching and mixing and stuff like that. I don't so much scratch. I mainly just go for seamless transitions with Tractor and things like that. So my goal is to try to blend everything, but around here it just doesn't work. So I quickly found out that if I was going to go anywhere else, that I had to come up with some sort of individual brand. So, we keep the crossover thing going, but, if it's on my own or we're just going out to where, I'm not putting on the production, then, that's the name I use. And it goes along pretty well. There's a lot of different things that we do. We're trying to do things here locally, kind of like what he's doing, but we're tapping into a different demographic. We're trying to get people that are my age to do something rather than sit at the house and drink or get whatever else is going on.
Watch us here.
Exactly. Well, let's see. We might have a few people watching, but I mean, I don't know. I just want somebody to do something different than sit at the house all the time. I mean, there's just nothing to do, so. People always ask me, this place is lame, this area is lame. Okay, well, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
But if we're going to do something about it, then that means you have to get up and you got to come out.
That's right.
And let's do this thing. So we started this thing at the Blue Pit. It was the blacklight parties, and this was kind of the thing that kind of set it off. So we thought, okay, we're going to try this. And Dave and the guys over at the Blue Pit, they were kind of willing to go out on a limb with us. Me and Jay had kind of talked about just kind of throwing a gig. Let's just see how it goes. Right. And I'm like, okay. And I've never been able to play that kind of stuff around here, so it was a little bit different. So the first one that we did, it did fairly well. Mm-hmm. People came in and people were coming up like, what are you playing? What is this? What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to dance to this? I don't know. Just let it happen. Because people are way too concerned with, oh my gosh, this isn't Drake. Okay, sorry. So then they were like, you know what? Let's do another one. So we did another one, and the next one. We filled the place to fire capacity in there and had to turn away people at the door. I mean, the bar was overrun, everything was overrun, and it was loud. And I'm talking, it was so loud that Jay had some speakers in there. And at one point in the evening, whenever he was DJing, I looked over and I said, man, do you have lights in your speakers? He goes, no. I said, well, man, every time the beat hits, that speaker is turning red. Wow. He goes, what? I looked over, and I mean, in the back of those old JBL speakers, they had the light fuses in there and whatnot. And whenever they blow, whenever you run a lot of power through them, it looks like a light bulb. And they had some smoke rolling out of those.
So what changed between the first one and the second one?
Just word got out. I mean, the people that were there at the first one are like, man, you got to come to this next one. It was cool. And people were dressed up with glow paint and everything. They changed all the lights in there to black light and whatnot. So we kind of did that and kind of branched off, and then we started releasing mixes online and kind of getting people used to the whole thing, because it was hard. I mean, there were a lot of people that didn't understand what was going on. And then a couple other DJ friends were like, yeah, we want to get into that too. So they started getting into it with us, and it's been a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. There's normally 4 of us at a time that go up there, and sometimes we go back and forth. But most of the time we just do our own thing.
I mean,
Jay Storm,
right?
We know him. MG. Matt, we know him.
Okay, so Matt, I've been giving him heck about the name. He said, "Oh, I just came up with that out of the blue." And so I was saying, "No," I said, "How about this? How about Matty Great?" How about
he won't do that. No, everybody gave me crap too, because they were like MIXAR. What's that about? I was like, okay, let's be cheesy for a second. Pixar.
I'll tell you what,
I kind of like the caveman one the best, though.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's Mark Lambert, and his first gig ever was the third glow party that we did. That was the first time he had ever DJ'd in front of anybody, and he's into the whole trance thing. He's into the Dead Mouse, and
so you don't play what's on the radio. You won't hear the Chainsmokers and Calvin Harris.
You will hear the Chainsmokers, but you will hear. I try to bridge over. I don't completely just throw everybody to the wolves with stuff that they don't understand. So, in order to bridge the gap, I kind of let everybody do their thing, but I want to bridge it with like trap and remixes and mashups and things like that. So a lot of trap remixes. It's something that still plays to the Mid-Ohio Valley crowd, where they gotta have rap. That's all they're concerned about is the rap, and then throw a really awesome beat behind it and something that's just thrashing, dubstep and electronic and stuff like that, and then just blend it all together. And that's really hard to do because you've got so many different things and so many different producers, and there's not one outlet for this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So whenever you delve into the remixes, and Mike knows this, I mean, it's really, really hard. You got to lay this stuff out ahead of time and really figure out where you're going to go with it. But you play the Chainsmokers and you can get away with that, but really, my goal is to, whenever I start, it's just one giant song, and you ride the wave. You're up and down, and you've got a little bit of everything in there. So I want people to realize that there's all these different types of music that are out there, because everybody just gets caught in the same mundane thing all the time. And, when we're talking about the radio stuff and how it's all the same all the time, that's why we try to do that. So we try to ease it in, and so far it's working out.
And the next show is when?
We haven't planned the next one yet.
Okay.
We're looking at possibly doing it a couple different places, not necessarily here.
And if somebody is watching that's interested in that and they don't know how to follow your shows, or where would you tell them to go?
You can find me on Facebook, DJ MIXAR, MIXAR, and you can go on there. And anytime that I've got anything, I'm going to post it on there. I haven't really been posting a whole lot right now, but as we're just trying to find a way to market it. It's kind of like what KOS and those guys are doing. You have to have something to show people and explain to them what this is, because they have no idea. Nobody understands what this is. And whenever they've been landlocked here all their lives, it's hard for them to see it. And the only way that I saw it was by going to Columbus, going to these other cities and getting asked to do these things and step out of my comfort zone and try it. And I've been really fortunate to work with some really good guys in Columbus. John Page in particular, I don't know if he's watching or not, but he owns Page Tech Limited. He does Red, White, and Boom in Columbus every year. And the first gig that I ever did for him, it was when Major League Soccer, they had all the team owners and executives come to Columbus for a business summit at this restaurant called Milestone 229. And I mean, when I say this, people were pulling up in Ferraris, Bentleys, Lambos, everything. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this is serious. And then it was a classy gig. It was definitely cool to kind of step out and do something different. And I remember halfway through the night, they come up and they're like, hey, this is the music for the fireworks. And I'm like, the music for the fireworks? And they're like, oh, yeah, we have our own private fireworks display coming for right down here, and it has to be synced to music. And at that point in time, I was like, okay, this is for real. So these guys are not messing around. They're like, okay, now you have to turn it on at this time. You got to cue it at this time, and whenever this beat hits, then we got to go to this song, because then this is what this shell's going to fire off, and all that other stuff. And that was really, really cool. And then he brought us on for Deer Acid Classic, which is the world's largest 50-50. Yes, it's a country crowd, but every year they have over 30,000 people. And I normally DJ Friday and Saturday.
Are we talking a 50-50 drawing?
It's a huge festival. It's an outdoor festival, and there's all kinds of different stuff to do. But it's actually a week long. But they have pretty big acts every year. We've done like 38 Special and things like that. Talked to those guys, and there've been a whole lot of different country acts that come through. But the crowds are huge, and it's just a 2-day party nonstop. And I go for 2 days. You get to meet some of the most wholesome people that you've ever met. They give away like 15 cars, 10 side-by-sides, vacations, log homes. You name it. And the 50-50 last year was around over $250,000.
Unbelievable.
Wow. And that's 2 nights of that. And there's all kinds of different prizes. I give away, I think it's like $500 cash every 15 minutes of that thing. So you get to see a lot of cool stuff. But I just like to do different stuff.
So did you win anything?
I'm not allowed to play. See? Yeah.
Now, and you mentioned how this market is backwards with EDM. Here's how I found out about EDM and Skrillex was, what year was it when he won all the Grammys? Was it,
10.
I would say 10 or 11.
2010. Okay, so I didn't watch it, but the next day I found out, okay, who won the Grammys? Who is Skrillex? I'm like, who the heck is... So I go and listen, and I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And so then I go and find Zomboy, and I find Knife Party, and I find...
Zomboy is probably my favorite.
Zomboy is really...
Anytime
he picked up where Skrillex left off.
Yeah, well, and that's why I liked
kind of production.
It. But anytime that anybody ever asks about Skrillex, I always tell them to watch his set from Ultra. I think it's either 2014 or 2015. But you need to watch it for an hour and 30 minutes. It's the craziest stuff you've ever heard. And there's 100,000 people out there just breaking necks.
Now, here, question for you.
Answer.
People who are hardcore Skrillex and dubstep fans hate the Diplo and Justin Bieber collaboration stuff. I think it's some of the best stuff that's ever been on pop radio as far as Sorry and Where Are You Now? Where do you guys stand on? Where do you guys stand on?
It's good production. It's just
very
different.
Good.
It's not what that hardcore fan wants, though.
But it's probably some of the best pop stuff I've ever heard.
But for the mainstream, that's what works, and those guys know that, and they've kind of adapted a little bit, and mainstream has adapted where they've got this happy medium now, where these people have figured out how to really appeal. And I see that Tom McKnight makes a good point. There's artists out there like Bruno Mars who have actually been able to do really well with the clubs and with mainstream radio. There's not a whole... Justin Timberlake is able to seem to do that. And I think it's because when your focus is really always seems to be just having a good time, dancing, and that's kind of taken us back to that 70s era a little bit, because that's really all the disco was about. The early hip hop, all that was ever about was either I'm the best rapper or get out on the dance floor. That's all there ever was before gangster rap. That's pretty much all that they ever talked about.
Well, you know what has killed it now, and this applies to rap and DJing and all that other stuff, are all these ghost producers. You can tell who has a ghost producer and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Skrillex, no ghost producer there because nobody is going to throw in the funky stuff that he does. Deadmau5, no ghost producer. But you have a lot of acts that go together, and Hardwell is one of those people that's kind of on the line that I use him as an example. A lot of those EDM guys all sound the same. Armin van Buuren, yes, I like what he does, but at sometimes I think all that stuff just kind of blends together because it's all like they're all going for the same type of feel in a way, and it just
David Guetta, Calvin Harris, Zed all seem to have a similar.
I see that. I think Calvin Harris is different than all those guys, and Zed is different.
Zed definitely is different.
Zed has a good influence from Deadmau5. And whenever he first started, those two,
he's classically trained too. If you guys have never seen, there's a video of him as a little boy. He's classically trained on the piano, so he hears things a little bit differently than a lot of the guys, which is another reason why
he understands music.
That's right, and that's why a lot of people were like, "Oh, I don't know who this Skrillex guy is," and they seem to forget that he comes from a rock background. He can play lead guitar and he can sing. And those are his vocals in early Skrillex stuff, just kind of distorted and chopped up that he was doing all that stuff. What's amazing about that, when you go back, is he was just using Ableton and he was creating these most ridiculous growls and sounds. But a lot of that stuff was made whenever he was on the road because he was the hottest thing. And there's a mic that I actually have that he recorded some of the vocals, and it's just a USB mic that plugs in. But he was able to get some of the most ridiculous sound, you know, with that stuff. But I also know that at that time frame, he was also sending that. I can't remember the person who does it, but all his mastering, and that is, people don't realize how important that is. You can make something, but when you put it out there and you get it on a big sound system, if it's not mastered properly, you can tell. You can definitely tell.
And a lot of those places don't have any sort of processing.
Keep going with your
allow
ghost
that
producer thing, because you know, Max Martin is somebody who comes to mind. Where if you hear Taylor Swift, if you hear even Adele's latest album, you know, it's a good chance that Max Martin has produced the singles.
It's all the cookie. And I use this as an example, and I'm not hating on it or anything, but it's like Disney and Nickelodeon are able to make these people that can't sing at all, and you know they can't sing. It's all auto-tune, and then they, just because they have a lot of money, they can back it out there because they know they're going to make money off of this, because all the kids are like, oh, you know, look at that. Yeah. And then they do that, and that is what I think really, really started it. I mean, it got into it. Now, of course, it even goes back, it started in the 90s, I think, too. I mean, it was even that way with rock music. You know, it all started to kind of start to sound the same. Everybody kind of went for the same type of deal because they saw one person did one thing, and then these producers like, oh, hey, we know how to make that happen, so let's do this. You know, you guys just kind of follow my lead.
It happened in the early 90s because, you know, before that, in particularly the early 90s still felt like the 80s until Nirvana comes along, and all of a sudden they bury it literally overnight that it wasn't cool anymore to listen to hair bands and, oh no, what is this thing, grunge? And all of a sudden, I mean, it literally almost like overnight destroyed that kind of rock
really
music.
Did, and then you had your copycats on it. Then Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and everybody else.
Speak of that, have you guys seen that documentary on Netflix about him, Nirvana?
Not yet.
Yes.
You know what
it was the
about?
HBO one that I saw. Yeah.
Well, it's on Netflix. Maybe was it on there? What's it called? It's got a really
It was the one with him and
Soap
Courtney
and Bleach
both,
or
correct?
what, something Bleach. Man, if you guys haven't seen that, I never knew some of the stuff that was in there. When you watch that, I don't think there's any question left to most people. I mean, you have to make your own judgment, but she had to have something. She definitely had something. I think she had something to do with that.
Yeah, well, and it also showed that he was a deeply troubled person.
Oh, he definitely was. And that's really a shame. I personally didn't listen to it and like it, but there was just nothing but talent in its own lane right there, and it really just got to its peak, and it was taken away.
Yeah, really, it was the Jim Morrison of that era.
He exactly.
Honestly,
that would have been a perfect comparison. Yep, it sure would have been. Yeah,
but his lyrics had a lot of pain and a lot of, you know.
And then I think in the 90s that really hit with a lot of people, you know, because there was a lot of that kind of rebellion stuff coming along. I mean, you saw the movies. When was The Craft made? Do you remember The Craft? Did you see that?
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden all the girls are dressing like that, and then we forgot about Marilyn Manson, and all of a sudden you have all this crazy stuff coming along. It was
Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie.
I think every generation has some sort of the people rebel. You know, I just think that's. I don't know if we really have that right now. You know, I think it's different now. People have too many different outlets, I think, to get different things. Whereas before, I think, you know, you had just, if somebody was making that noise, you know, in particular on the radio, then that's usually who people, you know, ended up going with. Because, you know, before the internet, you really didn't have an outlet, you know, unless you just went out and bought something, which a lot of people didn't do back then.
Yeah, I think, well, at least my oldest kid rebels by going retro. He listens to 80s and 90s
Oh,
music.
isn't that? Oh, yeah.
I changed to alternative probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I got tired of the same thing, and country used to be my favorite format, obviously, because, I mean,
You make such a good point about everybody copying everything that comes out. Like you said, if you go back to the 80s, once the first hair band hit, well, then all of a sudden there was Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, White Snake,
Poison, all those guys.
And then like EDM now, so you know you've got Calvin Harris and
that's why I went with alternative. I mean, I get tired of listening to the same thing. I mean, because you go home and you do the same thing. You go home and you're digging through all these directories and everything, and you're trying to get music that's good. And
there's so much of it to sort through now.
Yeah, and then by the time you're done listening to all of it, you're wore out. So
yeah.
I agree, but I kind of disagree, though.
Well, you guys are looking at with what him and I are talking about is, in particular, electronic music. It used to not be this way, but now there is a gazillion songs, and if there's a sound that you're looking for, which I always have, and I know that he does, it's so hard to find it. I mean, literally, and I'm talking going through, and I know that Alec can relate to this. Listen to 100 songs, and you might use one of them out of this. I mean, it's exhausting, because I know there's certain things that I'm looking for, and in particular, when I go and I want to make some new stuff, in particularly for the horror shows, it might be days before I find anything, because when I do that, I want to find something. First of all, a lot of the stuff has to fit with kind of a vision that I have, and what I do is I'll find a lot of tracks and I put them in a folder, and there's some stuff that's been in there for a couple or 3 years that I have to wait, and if there's maybe a movie that matches up to it, and a lot of times if it doesn't, what I'll do is I'll pull the audio from the movie, which is what I did with one of the Nightmare on Elm Street remixes that I did, that I loved this track so much, and I felt like they worked together, but there was something missing from it. So I went back to the original Nightmare on Elm Street trailer where it says A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I used that and pulled the part that would say the original hook, and I pulled that out and took, started splicing other sections and kind of turned it into its own track, but we spend so much time having to look for this stuff. I mean, it's not like, and he doesn't want to either. You don't want to just say, okay, yeah, I just want that song that's on the radio, and I just want that song that's on the radio. You want to be driving down your own lane, and you want to give people something that is an extension of you and what you do. But at the same time, we live in the Mid-Ohio Valley, and we have to still go down that lane.
You have to sell out every time.
You have to make it. You have to make them comfortable, and you can only take them out of reality for so long, and you have to curve back again. Yep. And that's what you do. You just curve in.
And it's
hard
to do that even with a remix anymore.
I'm kind of thinking that was sort of the root of people coming to yours. You were talking earlier about your shows. Mm-hmm. You had okay results the first show at the Blue Parrot, and then the second time around you had a sellout. Mm-hmm. People got to talk. This is something different. It's something different to do in the Mid-Ohio Valley. As we talked earlier, there's absolutely nothing to do here. You don't have your dance clubs anymore.
Well, and the problem is if you don't get the group of people that are in my age bracket, and I guess really now there's even a younger one now, that makes me feel old. When I can't go to a gig and play, Smash Mouth All-Star, because whenever I was DJing in high school, I could play that, and man, that place would go crazy. Can't do that anymore. And then one day it clicked when I played it, and everybody's like, and I'm like, oh no, this is awful.
I'm that guy.
This is not good. So I was like, okay, all right, but I figured it out. But if you don't do it now, then you're not going to get people to do it later. It's like what he's playing into with the 90s and 80s and those crowds. You guys had something to do, and you guys were, you were used to that. That was what you guys did.
No social media. It was just go to the club.
That was what you did. And if we don't do it now, here in another 10, 20 years, you're not going to have any sort of nightlife. Nobody's going to want to come out and do anything that is my age.
I think it's dead, period, and I think it's been dead for a while. I mean, that's why we do these one-off events. I feel like nobody is going to go out on a weekly scale. Like, hey, let's go to the club this weekend. Let's go, let's go do this. Nobody, I don't hear that out of nobody, and it's definitely not happening here. Like we touched on earlier, if you're going to Vegas, if you're going to the big city, that's always going to be happening because you got a tourist thing going on where people are coming and looking for an experience. Nobody here is looking for an experience anymore.
You want to feel alive whenever you go out to do something.
That's true.
And nobody. That's why college towns. That's why Columbus. High Street. You've got campus down there, and if you live in that area, even if you live in Greater Columbus or not, you want to go there because you're like, man, I want to feel like I have a pulse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why they go there. Or even just around it, just to see the energy.
Sure.
And you don't have that. I wish, and I've said this for a long time. I wish somebody, and hell, I'd even like to do it, is just open up a nice place around here, and don't have it open every day. Have it open maybe 2 days a week, and have it be something that is nice. Not, I'm talking, you have to look decent. You know, have some sort of dress code and have it done upright to where you don't attract, you know, what comes into most dive bars around here. And everything has a bad reputation. So if you have a place that is fresh and doesn't have that kind of reputation, and the Adelphia is kind of playing off of that,
yes,
but they're still kind of teetering on, you know, the Marietta locals and how they're perceived. If you just had one other place that was kind of out there besides the Adelphia, I think that would help nightlife around here a whole lot.
Well, and Brenda is making a good point where, you know, the drug situation here has become...
it's killer.
It's unbelievable what our drug... And it's an epidemic. I mean, it's not just a problem. It's an epidemic. Parkersburg is number 1 in West Virginia, and West Virginia is number 1 in the United States in overdoses. You know, and there's that big question out there, what are we going to do? You know?
And it's easy just to throw stones and just say, you know, you guys aren't doing enough, just fix it. You know, and
it's deep.
And I get that. Yeah, it's not just, you know, what are y'all doing? It's just not that.
Well,
you know?
and I heard on public radio, because now driving around so much, I even sometimes have to turn off just the radio, and I listen to this public broadcasting station, and I'm trying to remember what Iceland, I think, is it Iceland? One of these countries had an epidemic like we had here, and they have got it down to almost a 0% because they put all of these plans to give people something positive. There's a lot more to it, but they give them something to do, and they give people, you know, and that includes people, poor people, people that don't have anything to do or don't have money. They've got all of these things set up in place for the young people to go and do all this stuff. You know, is it that easy even to fix? I'm sure it's not. But I feel like there's got to be something somewhere, because what do really young people do now?
That's the vacuum that I'm talking about. And if you don't do it now, this is what's going to continue to happen, and this is what's happened because there's nothing for anybody to do.
Yeah,
and I feel like all we ever do is enable them. I've seen this talk about these places that they say, well, let's give the addicts or the people that are doing these things a safe place to do them, to where we can supervise them to make sure that they do them
insane.
okay.
What?
Are you kidding me?
That's just insane.
There's no way. There's no way.
No.
All that does is make them feel like it's okay to do it.
Yeah, that's not the answer, you know.
I just don't want to see that happen here.
No, I don't either.
We can't have that.
Yep.
You look flabbergasted.
Well, you know, just the whole, you know, I actually just, I don't know if it's true yet or not, so I don't know, but there was a friend of mine that just supposedly OD'd and passed away on, you know, it just, you know, my parents we all had this conversation earlier about, you know, how many times do you, and actually we touched on it a little bit last week, how many times do you give that Narcan stuff to a person and bringing them back?
That's right.
At what point are they not able to be rehabilitated?
Well, didn't they say that they were going to start charging people with panic of the public or something? Like,
I mean,
you
it's
just
not
can't keep doing and expecting people to be reviving people all the time. And I know that sounds harsh.
I don't wish death on anybody, but at some point in time,
and I know, I'm not going to mention names, but I've talked to a certain firefighter about this, and he brings up that specific point. Like, what point do we stop giving these people this over and over and over again and making these trips out? You know, you don't want nobody to die, but I mean, and I'm pretty sure, I know I saw that somewhere where they were going to start charging people with some sort of, it's going to be some sort of crime.
It's in West Virginia. I can't remember exactly where they said it was.
I thought it was like something panic in the public, or it's something along those lines that they were going to start charging someone with, you know, say, hey, okay. And I thought they were going to put a one limit on the Narcan. I think that they were going to put a one limit on that.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to, just to keep enabling it.
Yeah.
It's just, there's going to be never end to it.
Well, and I heard a story, and I'm trying to remember who told it to me, about whether it was the girlfriend or the wife was saying, you know, when they come out and they said, I think that the people that were doing this said, hey, you know, we've already been out here before. This is our third time out here. We can't come out here again. And she tried to make the argument, oh no, you've only been out here 2 times. And the person went on to say, well, that's because we had to Narcan you. You were out the last time we were here. So this is our third time. You were out the last time. So, I mean, it's really sad that it's become an epidemic around here. And it was a huge concern for me whenever I was moving back here. Me and my wife, she's from St. Mary's, but I was born and raised in Parkersburg. I know this place like the back of my hand. So when we were looking for houses, I instantly knew just by the address or look at the area, what was going on. And, this all kind of started when I left for Reno in 2007 is kind of when this whole thing started, and it just seemed to just snowball after that. And I was real careful in where we picked at, to buy our house at. And, it's where I wanted to be. But I can't say that I don't worry about it. At what point, sometimes does the bad neighborhood that's 3 blocks away start making its way over that direction? It seems to be fine for now, but it's crazy that literally, I live on a perfect street right now. Everybody have families, everybody, we're all friends, everybody's great. You start migrating over about 3 streets and going towards, that direction. I'm not going to use any names, but it completely falls apart. Just like that.
And actually, Brenda Dye here commented on our post here a little bit ago. First of all, she says too many drugs, etc., not safe to go have fun. Maybe that might has
that's
some.
That's true. And look what she's saying too. Narcan is free for your addicts, yet emergency allergy shot for your child is $300.
Yeah.
So where do we start drawing the line?
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you in some of these groups and stuff, you see people posting pictures of needles just laying around in town.
Oh, you know what? Somebody just posted. Who posted a picture the other day? Somebody I'm friends with, and I'm not even sure it was here, posted a picture, and they were going. I think they were scouting somewhere to either film. It had to be either somewhere to film or set up a haunt for Halloween. And they took pictures, and there's needles laying in the window sills, laying everywhere. Oh, and whoever it was going to have to clean up. That's what it was. I forget who it was. And they were like, how do we really want to risk our lives cleaning this up? People forget that somebody has to clean this up. I mean, when it comes to needles, I can't imagine how scared that would be because, there for a while, I was an actual dental assistant here for a couple years. And it's so easy. And I did it to be putting away a needle and to not be paying attention and to slide that thing on the end of it and miss it, and it goes right in. And you just stuck yourself with a dirty needle. Thank God that happened to me, that it wasn't by, some that didn't have that, that was somebody with something that something dangerous. But I mean, what if, I don't understand how the cleanup crews that come in to clean this stuff up, I mean, you almost have to have bulletproof stuff on your hands that you're picking up, when you're picking up needles and all that stuff. So, I mean, thank God we have people who are willing to do that and take that risk, because that stuff, and I see people, like you said, post pictures all the time of needles laying around Parkersburg. And while we're on that subject too, I don't know if you guys remember or not, it's been overshadowed, and I'm assuming maybe it's not a problem now, but experienced a problem with bath salts firsthand. Not myself, but somebody I know personally. And I don't know how and where that all got started, but I know that caused some real problems around here. Do you guys know? I was in Reno when this was all going down. This was kind of before the heroin.
I know a couple of people that was ultimately their demise. And then it was like right after that it was heroin, and then I've ended up losing. I've lost friends in high school.
I don't know if it's harder to find now though. You don't see the bath salts reports on television. Like you said, it's all pretty much opioids now. Is all you ever see.
Yeah, that's what it kind of progressed from that. I feel like, like it started with the bath salts for. It's really hard for me to ever even try to think about this stuff because, anybody that knows me, I'm about as clean as they come. I've never tried anything in my entire life. I don't even drink. I tried that a couple times and didn't even like that. So for me, I just don't understand the mindset to put yourself in a position. I mean, there's enough stuff out there to kill us now. Why you would want to go down that road? But I guess, we all think differently, and some people get in a dark place. And I know peer pressure seems to be something that seems to come into play sometimes. I mean, I never fell under that, but I know a lot of people get caught up in that. And, with all my travels around the country, and especially doing what I do, and I can tell you that I've seen everything, walked in everywhere, been offered everything, and it's that turning point, it's that decision that you have to make. Am I going to do this to sit in here with all these cool people? And it's funny because a lot of times we get to talking about stuff, and I totally forget about stuff. And I can tell you that this is something that weird, and it comes to my mind, and this goes way back to when Xavier and I was traveling. I hope Brad's tuned in. I got a good friend down in Savannah, Georgia, Brad Sellers, and he runs Elan nightclub and 51 Degrees, which is two of the hottest places in Savannah. You guys probably saw when I went down there. I did an 80s thing down there, but they brought me down to do Halloween there a couple years ago. But I remember Xavier and I going down there when we were doing the 2x4, and I think the club was called A Prey that he brought us down for. And there was some sort of after party somewhere, and I'm never that guy. I'm never the after party guy because I'm not doing anything. I'd rather just go back to the hotel and sleep. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And I remember we went to this house, and there was all these people there, and I'm talking all good-looking people. Mm-hmm. And I had to go to the bathroom, so I go walking, and I asked someone, I said, where's the restroom at? And I go walking back to the bathroom, and the door was shut, and I kind of knocked on it, and I opened the door, and there's three of the hottest girls that I've ever seen in Savannah standing in there, and they have a little small mirror on the sink, and one of them's down, and I'm assuming they were snorting coke. I don't know, but it was one of those moments where I totally see how you get caught up in the moment. You start thinking, and of course I was single at the time, and I was just like, oh wow. And of course, they're like, oh, come in, yeah, hey, you want, and they're all offering all this, and it's almost overwhelming. And as males, we get caught up in stuff, a lot of times, and you have to make that decision. And that was one of those times where that split-second decision where I said, no, I'm okay. And, I don't remember where I went to use the bathroom because that was the bathroom, but I kind of just backed back out of the bathroom and kind of casually shut the door. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Not particular that way that it happened to me, but they're at a friend's house. They're just, everybody's sitting around, or I wonder how these people get caught up in this, For me, I mean, I hate needles. So I'm not sure why you want to just go ahead and take a needle and stick yourself with it. That's why it's hard for me to kind of understand that concept, why you would want to take that risk mm-hmm. and go down that road. But there must be people who are just in a dark place.
I'd say there's a couple of things there. Number one, I think a lot of it is just, are you predisposed to addiction or not? I'm not. I don't really have an addictive personality, so if I smoke a cigarette, I may not smoke another one for 2 years. If I drink a beer, I may not drink another one for 6 months. I've been prescribed Vicodin before. To me, it just makes me feel loopy. It doesn't really even make me feel good. I don't even really like it when I have to take it if I've been given it. But what I understand about a lot of these people who've gotten addicted is they have some, and this is not everybody, but this is where we got ourselves into this problem starting in the 60s, where people have these extreme pain conditions. They're prescribed opioids, like starting with Vicodin and getting stronger, and then they can't afford them. What's the cheapest thing to do to fight the pain? Go to something like heroin or something like that. That's true.
That's very true. That's probably a good part of how that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Jack Horton with 96.9, he's been posting ever since I
saw that.
January. 166 overdoses in Wood County
since March 1st.
Yeah, that was his March 9th post, but 166 overdoses.
It's hard to even imagine that when you think about that.
And that's probably only what's recorded.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
What do we
There's
not
a
hear
lot
about?
more. There's a lot more than that, I'm sure.
So I'm hoping, since the medical community has now noticed that they've done everybody a great disservice by just prescribing opioids for every single condition
That's
known to
right.
man, I'm hoping we'll see those
I
trends
hope
start to
so
go down
too,
some now.
but I got a weird feeling. It, as they always say, it all comes back to the almighty dollar,
Yeah.
and that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Because some companies, people are willing to do that, for that extra dollar. And if that means, a lot of that stuff is way overprescribed. And I think that's been going on for years. And I just think now, we're just at that point where it's just like exactly what you pointed out.
And really, I mean, I hate to, it's up for debate, unemployment, I don't want to, here in the area, I mean, how many plants have we lost?
I know.
We've lost Ames, Shot Glass, Manville,
Yep.
depression hits,
Yep.
look for an out.
Well, and that's a lot of what they talk about too, And it's weird because, I wonder too, I know that we're not quite, I don't think that we're the poorest state. I still think, isn't Kentucky down there when they do all their studies? I think that Kentucky is actually worse off than we are, but I'm not sure they have the problem that we do. But I don't think that they have the plants like you were talking about, where so many people lost jobs, people are looking for jobs, I mean, there's so many things that come to play. And without getting into the whole political thing, I'm not sure anybody really ever has the answer to this, because there's a big problem now, and fixing it, I don't. It's tough,
So I want to kind of shift gears here just a little bit. Y'all were in the entertainment business. You've been more into the professional side of it. What about ticket scalping?
That's a real interesting one. I believe that didn't something get done just recently to help with that, as I recall?
I tell you what, hats off to, I think it was Eric Church. He went in and canceled I don't know how many tickets, but they were out there on the resale sites, and I don't know if it was under Ticketmaster. I'm not going to name where they come from, whatever, because I don't know where they come from. All I know is he went out, canceled the tickets, put them back on sale, and
then the scalpers bought them again. No,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I think somehow that's always going to happen, but it was out of control.
No, it still is.
Well, and I think that there's always going to be that programmer or that person that can figure out a bot that can go in there and buy up all these tickets and then resell them.
Last year at the UFC 200, we were sitting next to people. We paid $500 a piece for our tickets. The people sitting in the seats right next to us paid $300 for their tickets. It's unreal.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes you feel good.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think it happens. It happens all the time. I mean, and whenever big tours get announced, Bruno Mars, anything that's going to be huge like that, I think you're always going to deal. If there's the demand, there's somebody that wants to make money from it.
and you want to know who's making out like a bandit on this whole thing is Ticketmaster.
I was going to say, do they care?
Oh, yeah.
Because really,
They
whether
don't-
they're sold to a scalper or whether
doesn't
they're
matter to
sold,
them.
they get their money.
They're
There's
getting
no
double
effect.
dipped. I mean,
Yeah.
they're double dipping. They're getting a process fee off the original ticket they sell.
Oh, then they run
and
the
they put it on
resale site
and
too.
they're getting it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's out. I mean, it's still out of hand. I mean, I was wanting to go see Sammy Hagar up in Northfield, Ohio, and I wasn't quite ready to pull the trigger on the tickets. But even when I did go in there and look, the whole first, 10 rows were gone.
Yep.
So, it's just ridiculous.
Well, while we're still talking about some stuff, did you guys see where this might be off topic a little bit, but down in Charleston, did you see where the mall is possibly in jeopardy? If I'm understanding it right, if that company from Australia doesn't buy it? Did you see that?
No, I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of stuff going on down there.
You're talking the town center, right?
Yeah. You saw where they're redoing everything over there at the Charleston Civic Center.
Yes, yes.
And they're doing a whole bunch of stuff down by the river. And I shared that thing, and because, like I said, this is awesome. And what was crazy number? They're going to put like $1 million or something crazy into Wi-Fi. And I'm like, that's awesome that they're doing all this and that's great. But here's my big issue is, what happened to the days when we used to go down there and see concerts all the time? Yeah, that's great that you guys have done all this work. What's coming in on the back end?
I tell you
Are
what.
you going to start bringing in concerts? Because right now, Huntington's running the show.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. Huntington
They're the ones
is
getting
killing
everything.
it. They're getting Journey, for crying out loud.
They got the I Love the 90s tour. Every time I turn around, you or somebody else is posting something. Oh, we're going to Huntington. We're going to Huntington.
That's true.
The last time I see somebody, we're going to Charleston, was...
For me, it's Trans-Siberian Orchestra. That's the only time I ever go to Charleston.
Garth did a bunch of shows down there, and I think Dolly, and that's been it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great, but what about all the other gazillion acts that are touring?
Whitesnake was my first concert. I've seen Great White and Whitesnake was my first concert.
And the thing about the Civic Center is it's such a great venue. It really is.
Yeah.
I've always loved going there. I mean, they have a great thing. I mean, where else can you get the Civic Center and the mall and everything that you need? It's all right there in that walking circle.
Yeah, right.
And they have to figure out how to manage that. And I think that there's a lot of stuff going on right now. That's why I think that Sears, Kmart, heard about Penny's. And my buddy shared a thing the other day that I guess they're closing down some of the Applebee's. There's all this trend.
They better not close that one down. I need that one. Half
Which
price
one?
apps. Applebee's.
Hey, Mark Hively, if you're out there, if they shut Applebee's down, where are you going to go on Wednesday nights then?
I like the endless apps at TGI's, though.
Well, if Applebee's leaves, then the only way I'm going to be happy is if TGI's moves in.
TGI's is the shit.
Well, there's a move towards local.
That's my favorite.
Okay, that's been happening everywhere, and we're just now kind of catching on to that. When I was out in Reno, that had been the huge move. Everything downtown and around downtown was all going local, and I know there's a big push for that now, and I hear them talking about that on the radio, and that's why a lot of these places are feeling the heat. But when it comes to Macy's, Sears, Kmart, all these places are starting to feel the heat. Is this whole online thing and the going out and shopping experience is slowly leaving us.
Well, I used to work at H.H. Gregg whenever it first opened.
And now it's closing.
We don't know yet if our Outback's going to close, right? They said they're closing 40 stores, and they have not yet announced.
I didn't
I don't know.
about
Judging
that.
by the line of that place, them and Texas Roadhouse have got to be making a
I
killing.
can't,
So.
I can't see them.
But I wouldn't see our Applebee's closing either. I would.
Well,
think that,
this was out of town somewhere with an Applebee's, so
okay.
it's probably just it's probably certain markets where there's huge competition, but where there's that harsh move to go local.
Outback has changed, though. You know, you can go to Texas Roadhouse and get,
I
and
agree.
get two sides. You go to Outback and you pay more and get one side.
I go through this every time my wife and I have went there, and when we leave, I'm always like, why? I always feel like that whenever we leave there. I mean,
I still like it.
Well,
I still
you
like
know,
my
my
Aussie,
wife is-
I like my Aussie cheese fries.
Yeah, you gotta get the cheese
my
fries.
Aussie cheese fries. I
oh
love those
yeah.
things.
Well, my wife has become this ridiculous cook. So going out to eat has not so much of a privilege anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Craig said we should open up a restaurant. Believe me, I talk about it a lot, but anybody out there who owns a place knows that there's a lot to it. And
Sure.
if you guys haven't been to an amazing place, Chris Leonard up in St. Mary's, has anybody here been to the Boxcar? Okay. You want great food at St. Mary's prices. If you guys are ever in St. Mary's or you just want to get out of town and make a drive, it's the Boxcar. It's right there on the main drag. And Chris is an amazing chef and has amazing food. We're talking about somebody who is head chef at the Buckley House, who started their own place up there. Hopefully, maybe if you're listening, Chris. But actually, I know he came out to he'd never been out to Rewind. He was there last Saturday night. And, you know, like I said, I think that there's that big move towards local. And I think we're just now starting to kind of feel that.
Yeah, my buddy Jay Hines from work says, "Hey, Craig, I only go to Outback to use my AARP 15% off discount."
Do you guys all have one?
Not yet.
Okay, all right.
But that was a good one.
Second, you
That
don't
was a
have
good
yours,
one.
do you? That's good.
Yeah,
I haven't. My age doesn't even start with 5 yet.
Oh, okay.
Cause he'll get his first.
I get mail from them
I
all
do.
the time.
I
All
hit the
the
big
time.
5-0 in October, and I tell you what, it's weird because I really, it's not, I still feel like, other than a few things, that I'm your age, but there's certain things that remind me that I'm not your age. But
There are two great things, by the way, in St. Mary's, because I love the pizza station, too.
yeah, that everybody knows the pizza station. That's some of the best pizza around.
Make sure you take cash. They
Yeah,
won't take
isn't that
card.
something?
Yeah.
I've been saying that
That's
for
all right,
years.
then.
There's
She
an ATM
seems to get a
there,
buy
though.
Yeah,
with
they
it.
do have ATM though.
It has
Yeah.
no effect on that place whatsoever.
It is so good. My wife and I went up there one night for a wedding meeting. We met somebody halfway in between not halfway in between, but they were come
Right.
from Martinsville. And yeah, man, their food. That was
Oh.
the first time that.
Since we're going to talk about food, New Martinsville. Has anybody been to Quinette's?
Yes.
Oh,
Love it.
My God.
Love it.
Okay. If
you've
nobody's been to
struck a chord.
Quinette's, yeah, because that is the best buffet. And I know there's a few people that say, no. If you've not been there, take the journey. It's the best baked steak you will ever have. And I had never had Quinette's. I did, believe it or not, I do very few of them. I did a wedding that they were catering. And somebody brought me up a plate. They said, hey, this is from Quinette's. I'm like, oh, cool. I've been in that baked steak, and I was like, what? And then at the time, I was actually working in Sistersville for a dentist up there, and he's like, we should go there. The buffet there has every good comfort food you could ever imagine, and it's the best quality. I can't stress it enough. It's definitely one of those places. I'm surprised that he hasn't tried to put one of those down here in Parkersburg. But it's weird. I've still never figured out how Ryan's ever went out of business.
I liked it, too. Yeah.
Not that I was a huge fan, but every time I'd go there, there's people everywhere.
The thing is for buffet quality food, it was good. Because
It
I'm
was-
not a big
yeah.
fan of Golden Corral, but I
I'm
was
not
a big fan
either.
of
I
Brian's.
actually don't mind Jumbos there out in
Yeah.
Mineral
I was
Wells.
just getting ready to say, what's up with Jumbo? So
I got to
must
tell you,
say
though,
something.
here, best new buffet in the area, Philippines Best, just started doing a buffet Saturday.
Is it the place on
Fridays-
7th Street?
Yes, Fridays and Saturdays
Okay.
from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
You want to know what's an awesome
Philippines
story?
Best has
I'm going to
a
give you
buffet
about
now.
that, and nobody here knows about this. I went to college we're going years ago. It was very short-lived, but I went to college and actually worked in a salon for a very short time. But whenever I was in college downtown, the girl who runs that place was actually in my class. I'm trying to remember what her name is. But, she started that little place just as, hey, maybe we should serve some Filipino food. Because that's what she was originally going to be, a hairdresser. And they must have really tapped into something.
Yeah, it's really
See, and there's
taken
another
off.
thing, what we was talking about earlier, too, is whoever that shot the gun, that they had that problem the other night. That was her talking on the news there one night that something had happened down.
I remember that, by their house close to Wendy's.
Yeah.
Their food, I mean, the Philippine food.
I
is,
haven't been
is so
there yet.
much. Well, we did takeout at work one day with them, and their food is just it's healthier too. I mean,
Sure.
it's not.
Well, you probably get to see you can count on that they're making it, that it's not brought in on a truck and rewarmed up. They're,
They have these little tiny egg rolls that they call lumpia, and oh my gosh, they're to die for.
Loompa.
Actually, we have a friend, Kenny Cobb. His wife Marissa was here at I don't know if you was at that UFC party that one night or not. She brought those little. I think it's what you were talking about. Those little rolls. They had beef in
Yes,
them.
the egg rolls, yes.
Yes, those were very, very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I just remember the Jaeger bombs.
the Jaeger bombs.
There's another new place from doing weddings. Have you ever worked with MBT Catering?
No.
The guy that owns MBT owns the Beachcomber, Murph.
Okay.
And he owns that in Williamstown. Well, he just opened up that new place in Vienna. It's called I Don't Care, which is perfect.
Yeah.
So whenever your wife has to say, I don't care. I don't care.
He
where
has
we're
always
going.
done great catering. My son went to Williamstown. He catered a lot of Williamstown events, and it was always
well. Whenever you
fantastic.
guys said you said baked steak, and that was what made me think of it because his wife makes some awesome baked steak down there. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, they've completely redone the place. We just did the signage there a couple weeks ago, and really good place. I don't care. It's actually it's right across from where the radio station is down there right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
To speak of that, if you guys need anything graphically done, the man right over there can do it. If you need your house wrapped, You can do that if need be.
Yeah.
But as I was saying earlier before we did this broadcast, that he does a lot of our stuff for Rewind, and he did our Beavis and Butthead stand-ups, our Pac-Man, and many more stuff that we're going to be doing in the future. But
Just get your order in early,
yeah,
because we're pretty busy. But good crew of people at Vinyl Works, Garage Trends and Vinyl Works. That's where I'm at. But
One thing I
wraps
don't
up that
recommend in
stuff.
this area is if you have a music business or DJ business, is not wrapping your trailer, because that's just
yeah.
come break in.
Well,
The
you-
exact reason why I've never put DJ KOS on my car license plate for that specific reason.
I think I'm still going to wrap mine. I don't know.
Think so?
Yeah, well, my trailer's got a few dings and whatnot. I mean, it's been rode hard and put away wet, so it needs a little sprucing up. But most of the time I have it parked, and I never leave it anywhere except for in my yard or something else. And normally, if I have it, then it's locked multiple times. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I want to do something.
Yeah, and it's kind of a funny story. I got since we're kind of tapping into the thief thing here a little bit. We had just the other day. Actually, it was yesterday. How many of y'all have the trash people that come along and
Waste management.
bring? No, not the trash men. We're talking about
The
We're
people
talking
that
Talk
like
about
your
the
trash.
scavengers.
we're talking about the pre-trash people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I left one of my boxes of tools out there where I was working on one of our vans there yesterday, and I don't know. At first, I wasn't so bad about them coming along, picking up my scrap thing, but I left a box of tools out there, and somehow or other, the dude didn't. He mistaken trash
Oh no.
with a box of Craftsman tools.
Oh man.
Had a
Seen him
buddy. Had a buddy who left his 4-wheeler trailer sitting at the end of his driveway, and the free trash people came and took the trailer.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Wow.
But it's good and bad, because I leave stuff like old couches and stuff like that sitting out at the end of my driveway, hoping that they'll
Hope they'll take 'em,
that they'll come and get it. So you're kind of feeding the monster there.
Wow.
Yeah, this wasn't one of them. This was my good Craftsman tool socket set with every size that you could ever think of. And
Wow.
sure enough, he made it look easy too. I got him on camera. He picked
Oh,
it
so
up.
and it's gone. No.
Oh no, he picked it up like a suitcase, put it in the truck, and off he went.
Yeah, that's
Jeez.
We did have one more story here about food. I had it in my agenda. So a new place in Grand Central Mall is opening up called Stir Fry 88. I guess it's a chain.
Yeah,
it says
it
it's
replaced that other
it's
right beside Pizza Place.
fast casual Chinese, and says it's
The new version of Panda Express.
the first West Virginia location of this. So I haven't heard of the place.
I hadn't
before.
either. I just saw it. I was just saw it yesterday. It was up there.
Speaking of the mall, have you seen the new seats at Regal Cinemas?
Yes, I just
Yeah.
saw
In the
those
mall?
today.
I about fell over.
Now, aren't those similar to what's already in Athens, though? Is that or-
From what I've seen, the pictures that they put on online yesterday, I mean, these things are the
They
real
look
deal.
comfy.
Yeah, I mean, they better be for the $70.
I was gonna say,
spend
they
there
need to
go
do
get
some-
a movie ticket and a pop and some popcorn.
It does.
Well, it's funny that you guys bring that up, because I've actually been going back and forth messaging the assistant manager there. So those seats are in all the theaters that they only have those in now are theaters 1 through 5, and they debuted on Saturday.
Yeah.
The rest of them will be done towards May. Now I got into a conversation with her and told her about whenever I lived out in Reno, they had these, trying to remember, was it called Galaxy? I'm trying to remember what the theaters were called, but they had this style of seating and seats in it, but they also served wine and food. And I mean, it was
Yeah, there's
a
one of those in
luxury.
Columbus. Yeah.
She
AMC.
says that is one of the things in the goal of where they're going to go. Now, they went from 2,100 and something seats with all of theirs down. In order to do what they did, took them down to 800 and something. What I told her, that I believe that quality is better than quantity.
Yeah.
And I think you will find, because I told her that everyone, and I mean pretty much everyone that I knew, was no longer going up there.
That's
to
true.
the movies.
You
They're
can't,
either-
You go to
can't
Athens.
afford it.
You
well,
go to Athens.
it's ridiculous to pay that kind of money
Yeah.
and still sit in 90s
And it's not
technology.
even an IMAX.
Not to mention, a 30-mile trip either way to Marietta or Athens, you're getting the same
People were
quality
doing
for
it
less of a
all
price.
the time, and
Yeah.
people were doing it all the time. And I can tell you that my last experience, whenever I went there, it was horrible. I mean, I went to lean over on one of the chairs, and my hand went through it, and I thought, how is this still happening whenever there's all of these nice places out there, with the seating that I had come from when I was out in Nevada. And then I don't know how long ago that Marietta did theirs, because I know they upgraded their seating, and I've never actually been up there.
Is that the Olympia?
Lafayette one up there?
Lafayette.
Yeah.
Odyssey.
Odyssey.
Odyssey, yeah. And I've never been to that one, but I know that they upgraded. But I thought, how is it that, our mall and the theaters at our mall are so behind on times, and then, with this coming up now, like I told her, I said, you couldn't have done it at a better time. Mm-hmm. It's going to, and it may take some time for people to start getting comfortable to pull people back in there. But, I do know that you get a lot more room and you're not so crowded. And you remember those old stadium style seats, you sit there for 2 hours, you feel like that,
You can feel every spring
yeah.
that you're sitting on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just that with Regal. It's the
smells.
projection is not good. You can see the projection
Yeah,
going
like
off
need
the
a tetanus
screen.
shot.
You can hear the speakers rattling.
Well, and
Yeah.
I actually sent a huge email to corporate, and the one that I got back was basically like, oh, well, I remember that same incident of putting my hand through the seat, whatever air conditioning unit that kicked on, it was loud.
Yeah.
And if it was a quiet part in the movie, I mean, it's so distracting. I thought, wow.
That
how-
my thing is turn it up. Like you go in there for
Experience.
the surround sound. Turn it up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying blast everybody's eardrums out there, but at time you can't even hear it. And my biggest pet peeve is people that buy snacks before they get into the damn movie, and
don't
they,
even get me
they buy
started.
the damn Swedish fish or whatever they are, and they're over there and they're just rattling it all around, and you
Yup.
can't hear anything. All you can hear is the bag. Oh man, that drives me crazy.
Oh, I can't even tell you, since we're going to go down this road, how many times I've been through stuff where the experience of going to the movie theater has almost been kind of lost for myself, because I can't tell you how many times I've had to actually get managers involved where people are talking or they're rude. I'm one of these guys, if I sit down to watch the movie, I want to watch the movie. I don't want you narrating it behind me. I don't want you guys talking about whatever you're doing. I don't want you on your phone. And I know this is going to sound mean, but I don't want you going in your popcorn bag every 2 seconds and spending like 5 minutes in there looking for popcorn that should be at the top.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows what I'm talking about, that, and that's just kind of like for me, and that's why I chose, and I've always wanted to do it. I just turned my basement into a theater the best that I could, and it takes a lot for me to get out to the movies. I want to go see Kong. Shoot, I'd like to go see it in this 4D thing that I just heard about on Howard Stern, I guess, this week. I guess there are 4D theaters now. It's expensive, and there's only a few of them in the country, but I looked it up, and if you guys ever remember, you ever been to something like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, or where
In
they're
Disney.
Terminator, they're actually got theaters now that shoot heat,
Yep.
mist,
Air.
ticklers, air, like all of this
Yeah.
next level experience. And from my understanding, Kong is one of the first movies to have all that, but it's $30 a ticket.
Wow.
Well, that's enough for two people to go to Regal without any popcorn.
True story.
So
Yeah.
you might as well go.
Well, that's what I say. I mean, if you really want to see it, you really want to experience it. Speak of that, does anybody know anybody that's went and seen Kong this weekend?
No.
I've read nothing but great.
All of my
about it.
coworkers have seen Logan. That's what they were.
Yeah, I know a
into.
lot of people raving about that, but I thought the Kong thing looked really good, and I think they're doing really good with it. I'm not reading it, but I know they said make sure you stay till the end, and all I'm going to say is I'm hoping that there's a little connection there at the end with Godzilla. I'm a Godzilla freak, so King Kong versus Godzilla is coming. They've confirmed that. That's why they're both owned by the same people now, that they've managed to do that, where they're going to bridge that gap.
By the way, we have a few Odyssey tickets too that we should give away.
That expire in 3 days.
3 days. Yep. So you got to go quick. But hey, Free is free, right?
That's exactly
There you
right.
go.
Hey guys, speaking of, I was just thinking about this with the $30 adventure. Has anybody been to, what's the place where they lock you in a room and you have to get out? Is it the adventure room?
It's the escape room. It's no
Yeah.
longer up there. It was over there. It was across right from where I used to work. It was right there on Dudley
I
Avenue.
know those are popping up all over the place.
That is the fastest growing form of entertainment in the United States right now. All the people that I know in the haunt industry are trying to put those together because that becomes year-round income. Because if you guys, people who don't already know this, the haunt business is a big business, and when it's done right, it is it pays very well. It's a lot of work. I know guys in the industry who make 6 figures off their haunts.
Wow.
But you're talking about a year-round thing that you have to do. I mean, if anybody's ever been to the Haunted Hoochie in Columbus, you can see how much money potential there is for something like this. I mean, the last time we went there a couple years ago, I don't want to wait in line. I want to walk right in. That cost us $45 each. There was a line of us to get in there. They told me that they have a line. If you look over to your left, whenever you're in line for that, there's a line that snakes that's 2 hours deep, and they have a line from 7 until 1 o'clock in the morning at $25 a person. When you figure all that up, there's probably 6 figures sometimes on some nights, depending on how many people are buying VIP and how long they decide to milk it till 2 o'clock in the morning. But I totally forgot where I was going with that.
When are you going to start one?
I've talked to one of my friends who has a piece of land, and already, because you could have a monopoly on it in this area because you have to drive to get to one. It's a huge investment up front,
and
it's
far.
a huge
I mean,
investment.
we usually go to
That's what we
the
do
one
for my
there
birthday.
outside of Wheeling, and I mean, you're talking.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
if you really want to go to anything that's really awesome, this past year we went for my birthday. We went up to Scare House and to 100 Acres Manor, which is up in Pittsburgh. I mean, both of these guys took 45 minutes to get through, and they're amazing. I mean, I used to, whenever I lived out in Reno, we used to go down to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, and I can tell you there's never, it's hard to compare once you've been to something like that. But a lot of these guys are getting to that level now, but you're also talking about investments of a lot of money. But these guys are pulling big numbers. But, you basically are a slave in September and October, and then you start after the first of the year of redesign, and you have to design it all year. You have to stay on top of it. You can't keep the same haunt every year and expect everybody's going to come out and be like, well, this is the same thing it was last year. But there is big money to be made in it, and yeah, I've talked to one of my friends about it. I said, this would be great. Every once in a while I see haunts come up for sale, which would be the way to do it, where somebody's selling their entire haunt. But to do it, I mean, you're looking at a 6-figure investment to do it and do it right, and but then you have to have another whole promotional budget because people have to know about it. I mean, you can have the greatest thing ever, but if nobody knows about it, then nobody's going to be there.
Yeah. We had some comments. Brenda says dinner mystery weekends. Jay Hines says about movies, go to Nelsonville, Movies 10, $4
Yeah,
movies and
heard
good
about
food.
that all
You can
the
afford to
time.
take your family to the movies.
Yep.
Tom McKnight says, great time listening tonight, guys. Thanks, Tom. Doug said about food, some of the best catering is from Theo's out of Cambridge. They used to do the food at the Becky Thatcher years ago.
I would agree.
I've heard of Theo's, actually.
I would agree.
Brenda says Parkersburg Brewery now has incredible food and great atmosphere. I haven't got to go there.
Burgers
I
are
haven't
good.
either. They're only open on certain nights.
Burgers are very
and
good.
at night only. Correct.
Exactly.
The beer's good. You can actually get a pint to go from there. They'll put it in a can for you right there. Anything that they have in there, and it's really, really good. It really is. It's a little pricey, but I can understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
they're doing something that's
Sure.
completely new, and it is an awesome looking place. They've really done an awesome job with the whole atmosphere in there. So if you get to go,
Oh yeah.
you need to go.
If you guys haven't been down to Point Park Marketplace, I spend a lot of time down there, and Marvin has done a wonderful job with that place.
That little pizza place.
I go
in
there
is
for
actually
James
pretty
IGA
good.
pizza. Yep.
Yes, the pizza there is amazing.
Their subs are good.
I can't say I've sworn to secrecy, but I know something that's coming there that you guys are going to be. Oh my gosh! I just heard about it
Spill
last
it.
night.
Spill it.
I can't. I can't do it. I told him I wouldn't say anything, but just trust me when I say it's going to be great whenever it gets there. It's probably, I think he said it's going to take about a month to put everything in place, but it's what they have needed down there and that I have commented about for a long time now. It's going to be, it'll help give that place that extra boost that it needs. And of course, Wits, the ice cream place, will be back. They leave whenever it's cold, and then they come back. They're going to be back this spring, which I guess we're getting close.
That's what I'd like to do. Leave whenever it gets cold.
I'm had enough with this weather too, by the way.
I'm just excited working downtown that Sheets is coming, man. I'm
Oh,
excited.
man.
There
we go.
I don't. Okay, I can't. I don't get it. I went down. My mom was talking about it when she lived down in Sandyville, and I kept hearing about this Sheets is coming. Like, oh my God, I can't wait for Sheets. And I walk in, I'm like, okay. So maybe I'm missing something, guys.
Hey,
I don't understand the
food?
excitement.
It's the food.
Yeah,
It's the
it's
food.
I didn't, but I'm like,
anytime.
And
It's any time.
And it's the fact that it's made to order. You literally walk up to a terminal and you punch what you want, and like all the ingredients come up, and you tap exactly what you want on it, and they make it like that. You
And
don't
what
have
makes
to-
it different from the next place? What is the difference between someone?
It's actually fresh food, and they actually make it right there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say what would be the difference in that? And look, I don't eat there all the time. Let's like say a Hardee's who claims that they make their fresh breaded tenders. What would separate them from anybody else?
I could bet you that you're going to get your order at Sheets about 40 minutes before you're going to get your hand-breaded chicken tenders at Hardee's.
Well, and what I literally like about it, like I said, is the made to order, is that it's all on a computer, and you literally check exactly what you want on your sandwich, exactly how you want your sides.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, and I was checking all that out, which could bring us into a crazy long conversation about minimum wage and people
Go
and
to
the
Morgantown.
jobs.
Go up
We
to
only have
Morgantown.
15 minutes.
No,
dude.
I
We're
know,
gonna-
and we won't get into that. But see, that's where I feel like we're going to be at a shifting point where
Yeah.
there's not going. The kiosks are going to start becoming more popular
So
because
a crazy future thought that I've heard people talk about in some of the tech. I listen to a lot of tech podcasts. 'Cause I work in the tech field. A crazy future thought, and we're talking Star Trek here. We're talking year 2300 or whatever. We're gonna have to get to a place where most people aren't going to be employed because robots and computers are going to be doing everything, and there's going to be a universal income.
And I
You're
don't
just
think-
going to get some base salary.
And you know what? We are probably not that far off. And why? Since you're talking about that, I can tell you, because I've been watching this pretty steady for a while now. Terminator, the movie, is really not even sci-fi anymore. And I've been saying this, and I shared something a while back, and there's a video out there of this robot. And I can't remember what they say or what they do, but this thing goes over, it opens the door. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It opens the door, and it walks outside, and it walks to the other warehouse where the packages are at, through the woods. And it gets there, and it reaches down, and it picks the package up, and the guy goes over, and he knocks the package out of the hand, and it just reaches down, picks it back up again. He takes, and he shoves the robot over, and it's almost scary the way that it stands right back up at attention and picks the box back up. My point being is that we're getting to a point where that stuff is not really becoming future anymore, because when you start combining, first of all, that's the only thing that they're showing us. You start thinking about the technology with Siri. Okay, this is just stuff that they're giving us, and if you've seen that creepy video of that girl head with all the facial expressions whenever she's talking, and you start building all this, and you've got companies like, without getting into what it is, but it's called Real Doll, which is, a couple guys came together that do prosthetics and all this stuff. When you start combining, like, where you can actually build a real person, I don't know if you guys have seen the show, and it's wonderful. It's on, I think it's on Monday nights on AMC, called Humans. Have you seen it? We're not too far off to where robots will be walking around at our society at some point. I mean, it's going to happen because, they've had robots that can go upstairs, robots that can do everything. And what was it the other day? I saw somebody share something. They said, as soon as this is available, I don't care what it cost. It was a kitchen, and it has what you're talking about. And you go over, and they were showing, okay, I want this. And they pressed hamburger, and it went in the refrigerator, and it got it, and it did everything to completion. Salad, everything you could think of. It was an arm, like what we're looking at here. It was a mechanical arm. And it made everything that you could make as a human within reason that you could do. And you're right. At some point, are we going to become that automated society? You know?
Just saw a Japanese video of a Japanese robot burger flipper on TV. Swear. I was looking at that and I was,
for sure.
It's just, it's got a little thing. It just picks it up and flips it over for you.
You need to see that video of that kitchen thing. The kitchen thing is so far, it's insane what that thing, it's a whole kitchen that you buy and you just go in. I mean, how great would that be? It's still great to have somebody make your food, but if you're tired, you come home from work and you're just like, yep, want that.
I got a couple things on my agenda we need to change real quick because one of them was specifically for Alec.
Uh-oh.
Dallas Cowboy fan. Where is Tony Romo going to go?
Where's he going to go? I don't know. I hope he doesn't go anywhere.
So what do you think might happen then?
Waterboy?
I mean, what are the specific scenarios that you see happening here? I mean, I'm hearing that he's already going to be released and go to Houston.
Well, that's what they were saying. I would hope that they would just restructure it because, I mean, the guy, I mean, whether or not you're a fan or not, I mean, the guy had the franchise on his back for a long time. He is the only reason that the Cowboys had any 8-8 seasons.
But you also do think of him as the Brett Favre of the league, that every time he's under pressure, he throws an interception.
Here's the thing, though. You know, there was nobody else that would make a play, so he was forced to throw 40, maybe even 50 passes in a game. So of course your interceptions and your completions and whatnot are going to go down. I mean,
so having Zeke, you think, is the difference? Then is that what you're saying?
The last time that Romo was in and they had a running game was with DeMarco.
Yeah,
and that was when Dez had the catch at Green Bay. I don't care what anybody says, that was a catch, and they went they had 13 wins that season, and that was the first time that they had an O-line and they had a running game.
So suppose this does happen. Suppose Romo gets released. He goes to Houston. Is Dak the man? Are they as good or better next year as they were this year?
I don't know. I think the offseason is Dak's worst enemy because I have a feeling that he's going to come out next year
and have that sophomore curse.
And he's got all the weight and he's feeling good or whatever. Or he may be feeling like, man, okay, now I got to live up to that, and then he's going to make mistakes.
And then the other thing is, it's hard for a running back to take as many carries as what Zeke does year after year after year. I mean, look at Adrian Peterson. You can only do that for so long.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just think it would be a better idea to not be counting all the chickens before the eggs hatch because, I mean, Dak's good. Zeke's good, and I'm really happy that Zeke's there. But, Romo, I think he handles it better. He's been pretty smooth for a long time with all the heat that he gets every time. He could throw 30 out of 31, passes and have one interception, and people are going to, be out with the picket.
I have to say he's been very classy through this whole transition thing.
Maybe we could get another Steeler Cowboy Super Bowl rematch.
I would like that.
I would love it.
Just hopefully the Pittsburgh quarterback won't be the MVP for Dallas this time, though.
Yeah.
Like Neil O'Donnell.
Oh, God. Well, we need to do it before Ben. I think Ben's about
getting
done.
Near the end.
And I think he is at the end. I think he wants that he wants one more. And I think that's the only reason why he's coming back.
So do you think Tom Brady will ever stop?
I hope.
That guy, I hope. And it's not, I don't hate New England. And Tom is a great guy.
No, but man,
I think it's one of those things. If you're not a New England fan, then you just,
The thing that I don't like about New England, and you guys probably heard about what happened leading up to the Super Bowl. Number one, and they've been caught for cheating before, but they went down for practice, and the Falcons were practicing at some university. I can't remember which one it was. And there was a drone flying overhead, and they grounded the drone, and they couldn't figure out whose drone it was.
Don't tell me it was Belichick's.
Okay. Now, this is where it gets even better. Leading up in that same week, they go and they get ready to go to practice. The Falcons get there. All the team executives and coaches are there. And all of a sudden, one of the offensive coordinators gets his backpack stolen that just so happens to have all the plays in it. Now, wouldn't that explain what the hell happened to the Falcons after the halftime debacle and then come back and win like they did?
That was crazy. That has to be one of the craziest things.
Yeah.
I do love all the memes
everything
that it creates, though. The Bill Belichick memes, like the meet the Atlanta Falcons' new maintenance man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, listen, the guy's good. The guy's good. But I always feel like there's something else going on there. I mean, you can be good, okay? But how do you just turn it on out of nowhere and just happen to know where everything's going?
And people argue he was never that good at Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's bizarre.
And of course, I'm a Panthers fan, so
Well, you weren't
I'm
very happy
completely
then.
out of the mix. No, it was like a Cleveland Browns season, pretty much. But
They might figure it out one of these years.
yeah, well, I saw a rumor, and I don't know if it's true or not, but supposedly Julius Peppers is back in Carolina. Has anybody seen confirmation of that?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he's not the reason, but it can't hurt.
Yeah.
So real quick, NCAA basketball. How far does West? I'm not a West Virginia fan. I'm an Ohio State fan. But how far does West Virginia go in the tournament? Ohio State obviously sucks this year.
I'm not either, but I thought West Virginia lost last night.
They did.
Yeah, but they're still going to be in the.
See, I don't
they're
know
still
that.
gonna
I
be in
don't
the
know
tournament. They were
college well
second
enough,
seed in
so
the-
I can't comment.
I don't know.
They were
I mean,
second seed in the tournament, so
They could
they'll
do
get
it.
in.
I think that they could. I mean, but it's all the games that they need to win, they win. But then it's the games where like, we've got a pretty good advantage. They lose all those.
That does happen to them. And as far as Ohio State, I wouldn't be surprised if Thad Matta gets canned after this.
Yeah, they were good. What, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
That was their last really good season. But yeah, no, they might do it. We'll see.
Well, on an ending note here, and you know what, and it reminds me of somebody I think who you should definitely get in touch with and have on here is the guys from Dizzy Boy Productions that do the local filming.
That's funny you say that because that was one of the, I don't know if you've had it on any of your agendas, but that was one of the things was maybe bringing in a couple of the.
Well, it's perfect timing
local-
because was it last Sunday? I'm trying to remember. I went over, they had a casting call. They're getting ready to shoot a movie called No Knock List, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And I actually got a message today from one of the guys that they're going to put me in a certain part that's going to work really well for me. They've got a lot of good things on the horizon, and I think that they're just going to keep getting more and more recognition. I think they're right on the verge of something pretty good. I know that Rich Rule has done a really good job, and
He's got the drive too, man. I mean, I admire that.
Yeah, he does, and he's done some really good stuff over there, and I think this next one is going to help really take it to the next level with what they're wanting to do, and they're filming here locally too. That one, I think they're using somebody's house down there in around either is it Juliana or Ann Street, I think is where they're going to be filming
There'd be
that.
some very good houses down there to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of creepy, weird-looking stuff down there that you could definitely use. But I guess the house that they're going to use for this in particular is going to be a perfect fit for it.
You know what you need to do, KOS? You need to bring Jester out and put that into a storyline and have Rich direct it.
Okay, well, Rich and I have already talked about something I'll kind of let out. Jester is going to be an extra compared to what I'm coming up with. If you've seen me post with this new character that I'm creating from the Trans-Allegheny, I have a gentleman from a company making a hand, which I've shared a few times, it's the most insane thing that I've ever seen. And it comes over a concept that I created over someone who was crazy in the insane asylum and was infatuated with Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street, which, I mean, I'm not saying there's any ties to me on that.
You know, it's kind of scary. You do play the crazy lunatic pretty well, KOS. Well, you need to. Do you still have that video somewhere of the whole Jester thing?
Oh, they're all still up there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did too. Well, this is
just so people know what I'm talking about. Maybe post that on the page there, so maybe they can refer to it later on.
I'll definitely post that. Well, I create what he's talking about is when I do this horror show. I decided I wanted to do something different because whenever I was doing my shows with Xavier, everybody knew me for putting on the Michael Myers mask and playing this remix that I had that had the Halloween theme in it, and then I would light my record on fire, and I was scratching a record, doing all this crazy stuff. So I was trying to figure out how I could incorporate with my video shows and my horror shows and something new. So I could come up with this whole concept of this person who was a crazy fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and of Jason, and me and this gentleman worked on this mask, which combined the two, and I came up with this whole concept. And we did some filming out in Nevada, which is what he's talking. I'll share the video later. And I usually try to wear this costume whenever I do my horror shows. And like I was saying earlier, this new character that I'm developing, like what you were just asking me about with Rich, and I discussed with Rich, I really, when I got this new character done, because I've got a straitjacket and all this stuff that I've already done, the hand is almost done, and he's working on the mask. The goal was to go down the Trans-Allegheny and film. Mm-hmm. Well, after talking to a couple of the guys from Dizzy Boy and some other people informed me that, which I would have found this out, I guess, whenever we called them, but I guess Trans-Allegheny does not let you film any negative stuff. They're okay with documentaries and they're okay, but as far as movies and you doing any kind of slasher or anything crazy, it's out of the question, which is a real bummer for me because what's being created would have been perfect to film down there. But I was informed that there is a real creepy asylum-looking place in Pennsylvania somewhere that is abandoned now that you can go in. But I know some other people have said stuff about, the penitentiaries, and I don't know if Moundsville would be okay. I really wanted an asylum. That's the Trans-Allegheny thing was what I really wanted to use because that's where the concept for the whole thing come. And that's, if you see the picture, you'll see that it's got 2 straight razors on the first 2 fingers, and then the next finger is a scalpel, and then the 4th one is a syringe. And it's actually a syringe that was ordered from, oh gosh, what country did he tell me he got it out of? It's from the 50s. It's something insane. But I told him, I said, you're going to have to make something. We have to make a convention and a gig safe version or something on the hand because I have to make sure that I'm not going to accidentally hurt somebody with this thing whenever, whenever it's finally done.
Well, we ready to take it out?
Yeah, I think so. We'll have plenty to talk about next week.
Yeah, for sure. Just want to take a time here to thank DJ MIXAR, DJ KOS for coming in.
Thanks a lot for having me.
We thoroughly enjoyed you all and your stories.
Yes.
Definitely.
And
I think we could do it again. I think Alec and I could talk. We got plenty of stuff we could talk about, I think.
Yeah, I might have a marathon.
Yeah. But folks, tune in to us every Sunday evening at 6:00 p.m. We're going to try to have special guests each week, and we appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to have special guests each week, and we appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. And we're going to try to have special guests each week, and
What?